is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pennsylvanians have seen firsthand the awful impact on flooding on their homes and lives. During Hurricane Ida, residents in and around Philadelphia sheltered within the storm tore their homes apart. People shared their stories of swimming out of their homes. Part of the Vine Street X-way was underwater, and there are roughly $3 billion in damage. As climate change makes storms even worse, floodwaters are showing up outside federally designated flood zones like Middletown, Pennsylvania, which flooded in 2017 despite being away from the Susquehanna River and Swatara Creek or York County, where I grew up in. Some of the townships were impacted by a 2018 flood which has had only its 2 policies. Ms. Hernandez, how does the National Flood Insurance Program in rural communities experience increased flood risks for the very first time?
Thank you, Senator Fetterman, for that question. So, interestingly, the last 2 comments have been, about communities that have been flooded over and over and over again from Senator Scott, and communities that are seeing flood risks and floods for the first time. And I would say that in all of these cases, rural communities need resources and help. In the case of repetitive floods, people are exhausted, and local government staff have their time split between many responsibilities. In the case of communities that are seeing floods for the first time, there is not the know-how and the institutional knowledge to navigate the solutions that are needed. So this is a place where state agencies and federal governments can lend a lot of help.
Yeah. So how can we improve the education about flood risks before disasters and get resources to them faster after disaster?
Thanks for that follow-up question, Senator Fetterman. Education and mapping are really critical first steps. Information for residents living in flood-prone communities, like real estate disclosures, are super important, but then there's the follow-up. It's after you know that you have flood risk, you need to have help understanding the solutions. And as Mr. Wright has called out several times, the most effective solutions, both in terms of safeguarding people's properties and the most responsible use of taxpayer dollars, is to do flood risk reduction projects at a neighborhood or community scale. That really involves your local government, who is responsible for those types of infrastructure decisions.
Okay. And Doctor?
Go ahead.
No, please go ahead if you have something more to add.
I think that the point that is there that is so important, and as we watch communities who have no recent memory of flooding experience it for the very first time, it creates this reactive piece. And it's one thing to tell folks, which is true, if it rains there, it can flood. But the flip side is until it invades their community the first time, they're not taking action.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Fetterman. Thank you all. Let me do one last question. And